I am the better man, but I
Yeah.
shouldn't be held responsible because you wanted to choose a Pookie and a Ray Ray. That's not me. I worked too
And
hard
I'm
in
gonna
my
go back to
life.
what I said. Pookie and Ray Ray shouldn't exist. And the only reason why Pookie and Ray Ray exist because we're not in the community making those boys the men they need to be.
Absolutely narrative driven.
Yeah.
There's no more black men that are quote unquote Pookies and Ray Rays than there are in any other community. So the question becomes, how are we defining what's an appropriate ratio? Is it comparatively speaking? Because if it's comparatively speaking, then we're doing okay. But if we're deciding that we want to make our own arbitrary metric about what's a good amount of Pookies and Ray Rays for us based on what we think is good, well, that's a separate conversation that requires some follow up research and studies to be done to figure out what's the best way of figuring out the proper number of Pookies and Ray Rays for proper efficiency and maintenance of the relationship dating market, because Pookies and Ray Rays do serve a purpose. Like, let's be clear about this. Pookies and Ray Rays serve the purpose of removing the pussy holes from the segmented population of women that good men have to pick from.
Now, the one of the gentlemen, one of their rebuttals were black women ignore good men. See, this is when I felt like they should have dug their heels in. They talk to more women their age than Umo. So in that regard, they have better insight because that's what their podcast is about. Talking to women within this specific age range about how they date and what they like and all these things. And from what I've seen from the podcast and from what we've all seen throughout the internet, there are there are a certain number of women who desire the undesirables. They say the question is, who would you rather have, a scammer, a drug dealer, or a person who works a 9 to 5? And the majority of them, especially the black women, say they either want the scammer or the drug dealer. So let's just be honest. Black women are ignoring good men. Remember the tweet about Michael B. Jordan when the women say he looked too responsible, he looked
Mhm,
boring, he looked like he's too good of a man.
mhm.
Like, so there is a loud minority of black women out there, but the problem with
So
that loud minority is they're not being challenged by the silent majority.
well, hold on for a second because we got to really redefine what undesirable means. Because if these men are the ones that are desired to father children, if these men are the ones that are desired to be procreated, are they truly undesirable brothers? Or is this the selection that this the cognitive and conscious selection that a lot of sisters are making? Um,
So you saying
and
behavior, you saying negative behaviors are being reinforced?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at it from a perspective. You got a man that has 10 children by 6 different women, and then you hear from him again. This man has 15 children by 9 different women. And I mean, these are real numbers. We know
Mhm.
of stories of men with 35 children
34.
by
Yeah,
22 different women.
yeah.
And this is not an uncommon thing. So, what is it about this man that makes number 4 and 5 think he's going to be a good father for their children when he hasn't been there for the first 3? What is it about choosing this man? And a lot of times you'll find out that it's libido driven. Like it's libido driven. And let's face it, with the young brother, I believe his name is Eli, was saying, and he didn't get to the numbers, but when you poll women, women only want the top 10 to 20% of men, and actually the top 10 to 15% of men that they identify. But when you start talking about, well, what do they describe? I think it was a comedian. I forget the young sister's name, but she said she was talking to a therapist, and the therapist said to her, "What kind of man do you want? Do you desire?" And she described the kind of man, the physique, and all this other stuff, the qualities. And then she said, "Well, what do you think you need from a man?" And she started talking about the things she needs: responsibility, somebody's reliable, somebody's trustworthy. She said, "You realize you just described 2 different men." And what we have to deal with was the fact that most women want 2 different men. They want the man that they crave, that they want to desire, that they want to procreate with, the guy that makes their parts tingle. And then they want the guy that's going to be the family man, the responsible man, the reliable man to take care of said family. And this
That's
is
cross
stuff that,
cultural. That's cross
well,
cultural.
but see, in the chaos that we live in, it makes perfect sense. There was just a meme that was just out a few days ago, and I know the sister was joking, but you know, it's a little bit of truth in every joke. And when she said, when you find out you're pregnant, you need to go find a responsible father for your child. You know what I'm saying? We know that that happens. And we know that that's a part of the broken culture that we live in because we don't have shame anymore. There used to be a time where if you were out of wedlock or you were a teenage mother and you had a bunch of children, when those children were born, those children had to go down south. And now those children became your cousins because they were given to an aunt or somebody down south to raise or things of that nature. That's what used to happen up here in the north. We don't have shame anymore. There used to be a time when a man was no good for being on the corner, and all he would do is out there singing, and that at that time there would be winos, drinking wine, whatever, like Coolie High. Those guys were not glamorized in the community. Those guys they were ostracized, therefore they couldn't sit on anybody's step, they had to sit on the corner. These are the standards we don't have anymore. And then we wonder why the community is in chaos. So the only time somebody is talking about we need leadership is when we're in trouble. The only time we're talking about we want order and structure is when the bullshit we tried to pull together falls apart. As you said, and let's talk about numbers. Women have much more sex. Young ladies to young women to older women have much more sex than men. And it's something we don't talk about because the stigma is only focused on the ladies' man. I got news for y'all. The reason why it's glorified when a man sleeps with a lot of women, but the exact opposite is attributed to the women who sleeps with a lot of men, is because it's harder for men to court and gain access to sexual access to women than the other way around. All of us right now, well, Pat, I'm gonna leave you out as you married. But me and Joe right now can call 20 different women right now, and most likely, if they weren't prepared to have sex with us, we don't have access to them tonight. 20 women can make 1 or 2 phone calls and somebody's pulling up because the access is much easier for them to have that type of relationship, and they know this. And even Umar spoke to this, that women can have a man in their bed every night. But the problem is too many of the situations that occur make you undesirable to the man you want.
So last time I looked at the census, most of the men who are not married and black, it was 25% black, 29% Hispanic, 21% white, and 14% Asian. Those percentages make up the men who are producing children outside of marriage. Most men aren't making the babies. Most men are single and childless. He talked about, because he said that the young men were using feminist talking points, but then Umar also said that there were not enough available or good black men for black women, which is a feminist talking point, because all you have to do is look at the statistics. Go to blackdemographics.com and you can see that there are enough eligible black men for black women. It's just not true. And so I thought it was kind of funny that he told them they were using feminist talking points, but he was using feminist talking points, because to say that there's not enough black men, like I've been hearing that since the 80s. So
Bruh. And I'm just gonna give you some anecdotal stuff that I see working at a local college here in Philadelphia. In my office that's focused on primarily young black males. The only guy in that office that have a black girlfriend is one of the white kids. Sisters don't even pour into that office looking for those young brothers. But the office, we constantly have to beat the door down and block up, keep access for Asian girls and Latinas coming in that office. But these guys that are interested because they're not seen as they don't have the swag. These guys are going to be the next tech millionaires. These guys are going to be the next, Microsoft generators, creators of technology. That's the stuff they're working on right now. They are tomorrow's digital geniuses today, and they can't get a sniff of none of the sisters that come to that campus. And the campus is 70% female, and it's so black that it gets the benefits of a historical black college.
What- And to that, because the other thing, right? Like to take it back, I love to simplify things. Um, and the simplification for the because what PC said is accurate, but I just want to simplify it because I love it because the simplification bothers people. The reason why men can have a lot of sex and be applauded for it, and women can't, is because women like men that have a lot of sex,
Mm-hmm. And they
and
applaud
men
us.
don't like women that have a lot of sex.
Here you
Right.
go.
That's the simplification. So if the young girls want to remove that double standard, they need to stop liking men that have a lot of sex. That's how you fix that. Because that's one of those problems that men can't solve. The prize is sex for these young dudes. So if
Hmm.
the prize is sex and me having sex gets me more sex, what
Why would I
benefit
stop?
is there in me turning down sex?
Right.
You have been Pookie incentivized.
I'm just
Right.
saying. I'm
You've
just
been
saying.
pooped.
But
So
but
then,
I just think it's. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Joe.
It's just disingenuous to continue to push a narrative that the majority or even more than half of black men are Pookies and Ray Rays.
What?
That's just not true. Looking at because I was looking at earnings, and it's like there are 69% of black men who are in the labor force. There 87% of the black men who are in the labor force are employed. They got about 20% who are under the poverty level. The median full-time earning for black men in 2021 was 46,000. 37% of black men are working full-time year round. There was 41% who reported no earnings, but 22% earn part-time or other. 41% of black men are white collar. 39% of black men are blue collar. 21% are in service occupations. Most black men are out making a good living for themselves. They're just like the young man said, they are being overlooked. They're loud minorities in both black men and black women who are out there. Now, the only difference is black men are actually pushing back and challenging the loud minority of black Pookies. On the other side, the Pookies is not being challenged if we want to be honest about it. But
What?
do
but,
not
but
continue.
look, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Joe. I'm sorry. No, I'm just saying, like you had women out here who are defending the twerking that took place in Ghana over the past week at the castle where I forget the name of the castle,
Elmina
where
Cap.
Elmina Castle, where's the last place many of our ancestors who are our direct ancestors, so we're the direct descendants of slaves, our direct ancestors. Some of them died in those places. That's hallowed ground. In the twerking, it wasn't done in a ceremonial form. It was done very tasteless, very despicable, degenerative behavior. And to just echo what you were saying, there were a lot of people, mostly sisters, who tried to defend the fact that these women were twerking at that ceremonial place.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Joe. And I also noticed that he accused he accused the brothers of using feminist talking points, and his entire argument was one big ass feminist talking point.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it 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 was grating to listen to. Like it was it was
Yeah.
painful to hear, because even in a space created by men for men to talk, whether or not you agree with what those men are saying or not, you still have to contend with the ideas of women that don't necessarily uh, have the best of intentions for the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's be clear about this. He's saying that when a woman says that she don't need no man, that's coming from a place of pain. Okay, cool.
I would say come from a place of feminism, but okay.
No, but to me, at this point, with the way they're used, those are interchangeable. Pain and feminism is the same thing. At this point,
Chose
with the way
pain.
they're used.
You chose
But
pain.
so why don't I, when as a black man that's experienced nearly the same thing, virtually the same thing that you've experienced, when do I get to speak from pain? You're telling me that those sisters have to understand that when they go overseas, they can't talk to those black men like that. But those black men, by your logic,
Or the
are
first
just as
one.
worthy of that shit talking as we are, because they haven't done nothing for these women either.
But they would have, I mean, yeah, with that logic, you know, with that logic, we wouldn't be over here in America if battles were won in Africa,
Right.
right?
And that's the
So,
exact point I'm making, right? Like, how is it that the brothers on the continent get a pass, even though and with the logic you're using, they're even more responsible for the conditions than we are. But we don't get a pass, but they do.
but show me the group of people who were oppressed behind enemy lines was ever able to make that self-actualization like he's speaking of. Where are the examples?
But see, and you taking it, you're and I respect where you're taking it. I'm still stuck at the logic part, because the logic ain't logicking.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like it's not.
I'm just adding to it.
Yeah, it's not making sense. And then he says she couldn't find a man strong enough. Well, if that ain't a feminist talking point, then I don't know shit about feminism. What the hell does that even mean? To be strong enough to, and this is an argument that comes up a lot when we start talking about men that interracially date. He's not strong enough to, what is that? And again, I'm married to a black woman, never been with nobody but black women. I love black women. But whenever I hear that, I wonder, especially over the last 5-10 years, one, what does it mean to be strong enough to deal with you? And two, why do I need to be strong enough to deal with you?